Okay, are we ready? I think we're live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Larry James. I own a company called Speak with Larry, no spaces. And today is another video of the stock market. One of the things that I'm doing for uh, this year, 2020, 2021, I'm sorry, is I'm creating a guide or format or a blueprint for people who are interested in learning about the stock market to kind of follow and emulate. However, at the same time, my company teaches people how to set up the foundation of an online business while assisting them with becoming more comfortable speaking about it. So, with that, I wanted to combine the two. So, if you're someone who's interested in starting an online business, then you can follow this format as well, because the way it's set up is you think of your topic. For instance, my topic is the stock market. Your topic may be gardening or auto mechanic or whatever it is that you're familiar with, or whatever it is that you want to learn about. Okay. So, with that in mind, you would start creating the blueprint to be able to create content on a regular basis so that you can create an audience so that your audience can become familiar with you and what you do, right? However, at the same time, one of the benefits is that you're learning what it is that you what the topic is that you have. You're learning about that at the same time that you're participating in sharing content and creating content with the audience that you're creating. It's not difficult at all. It's very easy, especially with technology the way it is. One of the beautiful things about it is you get to do it at your own pace. However, you do want to have a schedule that you go by so that you can make certain that you check off the things that you're supposed to check off. For instance, you should create 2 to 3 videos per week, 1 to 3 minutes long. All right. Now, by doing that, you get more familiar with the process. You get more comfortable in front of the camera, and a host of other benefits that go with that. But how do you generate money? Well, there's a couple of ways. The first way is you not having a product or a service to offer. You can become an affiliate with another company like Amazon or eBay or something like that, and you can post a link in your description that will allow your audience, when they watch your video, it will allow them to be able to access that link. And if they buy something, then you get a percentage of the profit, right? That's just one way. The next way is that once you create your first month, my system is a 90-day process, 3 months long. Once you create the first month, you archive those videos. And as you archive those videos, what happens is you have a product now. Let's say you've got 12 videos. You can package that video, sell that online, right? You can use it with the system called Teachables and create an online course that walks people through whatever it is that you explained, right? Just like for me, this segment is about terms and definitions. Terms and definitions are very important to understand anything about whatever field of expertise you choose to go into. Because if you don't know the language that's being spoken there, you can effectively predict the outcome or create the outcome that you want. That's not how it works. So it's absolutely essential that you are familiar with the language that's spoken in your particular area of expertise. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go over some definitions and terms that I researched this week. And as I was researching those terms, uh, you may or may not know some of these terms, but if you do, that's good. If you don't, that's okay as well, because this is a teaching moment. This is what I'm doing here is I'm teaching. You would be doing the same thing that I'm doing. Let me take me out of this seat and put you in here, and you're talking about your particular topic. or your particular subject, right? You might have terms and definitions you can share as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go into these terms and definitions. The first one I want to talk about is an acquisition. What is an acquisition? Well, an acquisition is when one company purchases most or all of another company's shares to gain control of that company. Purchasing more than 50% of the target's firm's stocks and other assets allows the acquirer to make decisions about the newly acquired assets without the approval of the company's other shareholders. Acquisitions, which are very common in business, may occur with the target audience's approval or in spite of its disapproval. With approval, there is often a no shop clause during the process. So, what is a no shop clause? Glad you asked. A no shop clause is a clause found in an agreement between a seller and a potential buyer that bars the seller from soliciting a purchase proposal from any other party. In other words, the seller cannot shop the business or asset around once a letter of intent or agreement in principle is entered in between the seller and the potential buyer. Now, the letter of intent outlines one party's commitment to do business and or execute a deal with another. No shop clauses, which are also called no solicitation clauses, are usually prescribed by large, high-profile companies. Sellers typically agree to these clauses as an act of good faith, and parties that engage in a no shop clause often include an expiration date in the agreement. This means they are only in effect for a short period of time and cannot be set indefinitely. We mostly hear about acquisitions of large, well-known companies because these huge and significant deals tend to dominate the news. In reality, mergers and acquisitions occur more regularly between small to mid-sized firms than between large companies. So you see how that process works, right? I'm simply reading to you what I have done research and put in a notepad initially, because see, over time, then it would be solidified in my mind and it would make sense to you, the person who's trying to learn what it is that I'm teaching, right? It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. It's not difficult at all. The next term I want to discuss is what's called an acid test ratio. And now these are stock market terms. Keep that in mind. Acid test ratio. What that is, acid test ratio uses a firm's balance sheet data as an indicator of whether it has sufficient short-term assets to cover its short-term liabilities. This metric is more useful in certain situations than the current ratio, also known as the working capital ratio, since it ignores assets such as inventory, which may be difficult to quickly liquidate. So, what is working capital? Working capital, also known as net working capital, is the difference between a company's current assets, such as cash, accounts receivable, customers' unpaid bills, and inventories of raw materials and finished goods, and its current liabilities, such as accounts payable. Net operating Net operating working capital is a measure of a company's liquidity and refers to the difference between operating current assets and operating current liabilities. Working capital is a measure of a company's liquidity, operational efficiency, and its short-term financial health. If a company has substantial positive working capital, then it should have the potential to invest and grow. However, if a company's current assets do not exceed its current liabilities, then it may have trouble growing or pay back creditors or even go bankrupt. The third term I want to talk about today is what's called adverse selection. adverse selection. Adverse selection refers generally to a situation in which sellers have information that buyers do not have, or vice versa, about some aspect of product quality. In other words, it is a case where asymmetric information is exploited. Now, asymmetric information, also called information failure, happens when one party to a transaction has greater material knowledge than the other party. Typically, the more knowledgeable party is the seller. Now, symmetric information is when both parties have equal knowledge, right? Asymmetric and symmetric. Next, we have what is the accounting quotient? The accounting quotient is considered to be the foundation of the double entry accounting system. On a company's balance sheet, it shows that a company's total assets are equal to the sum of the company's liabilities and shareholders' equity. Now, based on this double entry system, excuse me, the accounting equation ensures that the balance sheet remains balanced and each entry made on the debt side should have a corresponding entry or coverage on the credit side. Got it? Now, what is double entry? Double entry is a fundamental concept underlying present day bookkeeping and accounting, states that every financial transaction has equal and opposite effects in at least two different accounts. Got it? This is a piece of cake, right? You could do this, and I know you could. It's just taking the time to, plus it increases your reading ability. Now, how cool is that? Because we all need to be able to read better, right? The next topic is liability. What is liability? A liability is something a person or company owes, usually a sum of money. Liabilities are settled over time through the transfer of economic benefits, including money, goods, and services. Recorded on the right side of the balance sheet, liabilities include loans, accounts payable, mortgages, deferred revenues, bonds, warranties, and accrued expenses. In general, a liability is an obligation between one party and another, not yet completed or paid for. In the world of accounting, a financial liability is also an obligation, but is more defined by previous business transactions, events, sales, exchange of assets or services, or anything that would provide economic benefit at a later date. How cool is that, right? Now, finally, current liabilities are usually considered short-term, expected between 12 months or less, and non-current liabilities are long-term with 12 months or greater. Does that make sense? Absolutely. I'm glad you think so. Something else I wanted to share with you today is that as I do research, I pick up on different what I call bars, what people are saying, and I really think that's good information, and I want to share it with my audience from time to time, right? For instance, this would be considered a bar. It says, excuse me, time in the market is better than timing the market. Time in the market is better than timing the market. That would be a bar. In other words, it's a great quote that I liked, right? Another one would be, you learn more when you teach people. For instance, that's what I'm doing to you. I am sharing content with you. Although I may never see you, you may never see me other than on video, I still have the ability, and so do you, to teach people. Got it? Now, something else I want to tell you about the stock market that I learned from a guy called the Wall Street Trapper. I was doing research and I ran across this guy and I purchased one of his courses because, I like to learn from a variety of different people, and I also like to contribute back to the system. But he gave this analogy about the stock market. The thing about the lion being the king of the jungle, right? The lion is the king of the jungle. And think about the stock market being the king of the ecosystem, right? People invested in the ecosystem. Now you have people that are brokers and people who purchase stocks for you, or different brokerage companies. These people we're going to call the lions, right? Or the people who are seasoned investors. We're going to call these people the lions. So why would the lions tell the people like us how to do what they're doing, right? When they make their money from us. The example he gave was the lion being the king of the jungle, and the lion eats antelope, gazelles, zebras. So why would the lion tell them how to get away from him? He wouldn't, because he would starve to death. The same way with that concept. So that's why it behooves us as beginning investors, or what we call new investors, to learn the game before we actually get in the game. Because if we just get in the game without learning the game, guess what? We're going to be an antelope, a gazelle, a zebra. We're going to be the prey. That makes sense, right? Another one I like is called, it says, knowledge sought is better than knowledge taught. When I do research, I am seeking out the knowledge that I want to share with my audience, right? You'll be doing the same thing. It's the same, that you'll be doing the same exact process that I'm doing, only your videos will be between 1 and 3 minutes long. Longer, the better you get. But you only required to do the 1 and 3 minutes long. That way you're constantly in the game. You're constantly getting better at something. And I was also listening to a video with Jay-Z one day. You probably know who Jay-Z is, but he was talking about, imagine this. Imagine putting an image out there in the world, right, that is about you, and that image becomes successful. Let's say you're imitating somebody else, and that becomes extremely successful. However, you have to go through life every day being somebody that you're not. That wouldn't sit well with your spirit, right? Because that's not who you really are. And that's one of the things that we need to find out, who we really are, and show that to the world, because that's what the world will reciprocate and give back good with the good, right? And then he also said, you only have to be right once. I like that comment. When you're doing whatever you're doing, no matter what you're doing, you only have to be right one time, and it'll skyrocket you to where you need to be. Another is exceptional service to others is the price of greatness. I learned that quote from a guy by the name of Al Duncan. And Al Duncan also had another quote that said, excuse me, you're guaranteed to win once you defeat the enemy within. You're guaranteed to win once you defeat the enemy within. And I agree 100%. I really do like that. And I'm going to share with you just a couple more stock market tips. And then we're going to be finished for the day. Okay, these are 3 things that wealthy people do. Number 1, they stop trading time for money. Number 2, they start making their money work for them. And number 3, they give an immense amount of value to people, because relationships are worth more than money. So think about that the next time you're doing whatever it is that you do. And finally, I want to tell you 3 things wealthy people do to build wealth. 1 is they invest in the stock market. Number 2, they build a business. And number 3, they invest in real estate. Not necessarily in that order, but all those at some point are touched. Those are points that need to be touched by you and your investment strategy once you understand how this game is actually played. Right? Got it. All right. Well, listen, again, my name is Larry James. My company is Speak with Larry. And I love getting the opportunity to be in front of this camera so that I can share this information with you guys, because believe me, it makes me remember it, and it makes it go in my mind and stay there longer, so that when I need to use that, or when a term pops up, I know what that is. I can relate to it. And that's where you'll be as well. So, as always, share with someone else what I've shared with you.